At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.
Emmanuel.
I swear by Almighty God that I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second edition of the Ghanaian Community Awareness Forum. My name is Emmanuel Nkosuohene, the chairman of Ghana Union. It's good to have you all here. Welcome to the forum, my distinguished panelists and audience who have joined from far and near to help us to understand, question, and or make use of the information that we so need regarding the vaccines and the virus that has engulfed the community for some 1 year now. At this point, I want to welcome all of you once again, but also take knowledge of the fact that this event has been made possible by the support and commitment of several organizations within the Ghanaian community. We have the Ghana Union, UK and Ireland, which is an umbrella body for Ghanaian community organizations here in London and its immediate environs around the UK. We have the Ghana Nurses Association, UK. We also have Western Region Nurses Association, UK. And we have the support of Nightingale Nurses Association, also a Ghanaian organization of medical profession. Permit me also to mention the support we have received from World Remit, fast, efficient, easy, and reliable way of sending money to your loved ones back home and around the world. They have been very instrumental helping us to get this program to you. We want to acknowledge the support of Omega Live TV, where this program is also televised live on social media, on YouTube, on Zoom, and via Facebook. We also want to take recognition of the Ghana High Commission, who is the government representative of Ghanaians in the UK and Ireland. We have the support of the Ghana Doctors and Dentists Association, who through diverse ways are helping us, providing you this panel of experts who you will hear at some point talking you through the issues that we have at hand. So my audience, welcome again, and to my esteemed panelists, welcome. I would have to set a few rules for this program. It will be interesting that we have to go through this program to make sure that at the end of it all, it's fit for purpose. And therefore, all audience will be muted throughout the program, except the host, who in this case will be the panelists, so they can unmute themselves as and when they need to speak to you. And for the audience, you will be unmuted when you are about to speak. There will be no self-unmuting access to any audience throughout the 2-hour session unless we identify you as somebody who has raised your hand via using the Zoom icon to raise your hand. Audience will need to, where possible, say their name and show their face when they are about to speak so that we can identify who actually is the one asking a question. Not for any other reason other than for us to get to know you as a family and friend. No personal details or information about any audience will be taken throughout this session, and so feel free to articulate your views as and when you find it necessary. Please go straight to your questions when you are called and go straight to the point. We don't want a situation where one person takes over the conversation and wants us to drag on for 2, 3, 4 minutes. So please, as much as your question is equally important to us, we want you to write it down and ask it precisely as you would have expected the panelists to answer. No audience will be allowed to share any screen via this platform to make sure that the integrity of this program is upheld. And we kindly ask you all, please, with all humility and at your pleasure, to ask a question, one question at a time. Please try not to compound 3, 4, 5 questions while others are waiting, and you certainly have a turn to do so at another time. Today, my name is Mrna Vaccine again. I am going to be your host, and I'll be moderating this program from start to finish. At this point, permit me to introduce to you the panelists who will be speaking to the issues that we have identified in this community and other communities who may join us in the course of the evening. The first panelist we have, by no special order, but in the realms of things as we are about to address, we would like to introduce the first panelist, Efa Moti. Efa is a prescribing advisor, a pharmacist who has worked for the NHS for over 30 years. Efa started off working in district general hospitals across the country and has in the last 10 years worked in hospital appointment as a clinical trials pharmacist in oncology. Good evening and welcome, Efa, to this panel. Our second panelist will be Imam Chadre. Imam Chadre is an Islamic scholar and a resident imam and chaplain at Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital, NHS Trust, also a chaplain at Highgate Mental Health Trust and King's College London, providing chaplaincy, pastoral and religious support to patients, relatives, students and staff across these institutions. Imam Chadre is also a lecturer at Ibrahim College, East London, teaching on a variety of subjects to mature students. He also leads seminars on postgraduate certificate courses in chaplaincy on spiritual health, mental health, and medical ethics from an Islamic perspective, which is taught on behalf of Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital at the London South Bank University. Imam Chadre, please welcome. We welcome you to today's function. Have we got Imam Chadre to show so our audience can see?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Our next panelist after Imam Chadre will be Bishop Francis Sapon. Bishop Sapon is the founder and general overseer of Calvary Charismatic Baptist Church worldwide. Over the years, his ministry has run and supported orphanages in East Africa and Ghana, including 3 preschools education settings in London. Bishop Sapon is also the former international president of Progressive National Baptist Convention, a Black American group of churches first headed by Dr. Martin Luther King, with 3 million in membership across the globe. Aside being a renowned minister of religion and a theologist, he also has a pastoral responsibility over many members in our community here in the UK. Bishop Sapon is also a theologist who has also mastered in human rights law and an author of about 15 books to his name. He is married to Mrs. Elizabeth Sapon with 5 beautiful children. From community perspective, I can say that Bishop Sapon is one of the people that I can describe as a man of high moral character and proven integrity. Bishop Sapon, you are welcome to this platform.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is by no means but one of our own traditional leaders, Her Royal Highness Na Tchotcho Soyo I. Na Tchotcho Soyo I, Her Royal Highness is Jasi Manye of English in the Ghana traditional paramountcy in Ghana. Her Royal Highness is also the president of the Gadangbe community in the UK and Ireland. She currently serves as a vice chairperson of the Association of Ghanaian Royals in the UK and was an immediate past vice chairperson of Ghana Union, UK and Ireland. Her Royal Highness Na Tchotcho Soyo I is a dynamic senior Ghanaian community leader in UK, passionate advocate for women empowerment, violence against women, promoting violence against women, and education of the girl child. Your Majesty, welcome to our platform this evening. I think you are muted, so we will get you to unmute yourself. And so, in the chat room, as I did mention earlier, in consideration of the past event that we did last week, we realized that we need some skilled and professional people to handle some of the chat room questions. And so tonight we have Mrs. Olatayo M. Arikewe, who is a pharmacist, a superintendent pharmacist at the Prairie Community Pharmacy in Dudley. Mrs. Olatayo is a multi-award winning pharmacist who has been recognized for her passion for pharmacy and dedication to improving the quality of health of her patients and community, leading her to the winning of an award for the best pharmacist in the United Kingdom in 2016. In 2017, she won the Best of the Best Pharmacist Award in the UK, awarded to her by the Chemist and Druggist Awards Board. And in 2018, her team of pharmacists also won the Best Pharmacy Award. Mrs. Olutayo Arikewe is the Managing Director of LT Coaching and Consulting Limited and a Fellow of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society and the Royal Society for Public Health. Mrs. Olutayo, welcome to the panel. Olutayo will be joining us later at the question and answer sessions to answer your questions wherever she finds it fit to bring it to the main forum, but she would focus today on the chat room, so feel free to put your questions there and know very well that we have a competent, qualified person who can also answer your question. Along with Mrs. Olutayo, we have Dr. Adjoa Danso. Dr. Adjoa Danso is a general practitioner we normally call GP in London and an executive board member of the Ghanaian Doctors and Dentists Association in the UK. She's a keen writer and has been featured in the Women's Health, Pulse, Cosmopolitan, Refinery magazines. Her work promoting community health awareness and shining light on medical discrimination on her social media platform recently led her to receiving Health and Wellbeing Advocate Award in 2019. Organized by the National BAME Health and Social Care Awards Committee. She has several accolades to her name, a distinguished, qualified, competent general practitioner who in many ways is here to help us answer most, if not all, some of our questions. As you will remember, Dr. Danso was with us last week, and today Dr. Danso and Mrs. Olutayo will focus their first 1 hour attending to your questions on chat and we'll join the panel for Q&A as and when the questions arise, and they will be able to articulate their views on it. So my audience today, please welcome to the forum, and for my panel, welcome. Thank you very much for taking time off your schedules to join us. We'll go straight to panel presentation. But as you would now recall, at the time we met 2 weeks ago, UK numbers for COVID deaths was just about 100,000, and just about 100,000 plus, and we have now recorded 120,000, some of whom belong to our community and beyond. And so, with your permission, with all humility, shall we now pause for a minute silence in memory of those that we have lost and those we dearly miss. May their souls rest in peace, and may their passing and memory be a blessing. Thank you very much. We will want to undertake a quick poll to just find out where we are from where we left last week. So please, just a quick poll. There's no personal details. If you can take it quickly, then we'll move straight to the panel presentation, please. Okay, thank you very much. And so at this point, we will be back to where we're supposed to be, and we will take our first panel, Efa Moriti, my apologies, to take us through the scientific aspect of the vaccine, the science of it. Efa, please take over.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, audience. I'm delighted to be here today, following on from the excellent panel we had 2 weeks ago. I only intend to top up on what was discussed then and answer some questions. I've been a pharmacist for 30 years now. 20 of those I have spent in my current role as a prescribing advisor. I'm not patient-facing, however, I advise GPs on prescribing so patients' medicines can be optimized such that their health is improved or maintained on the minimum amount of medicines. In my private life, people who know me, I spend a lot of time advising friends and family on lifestyle measures that they can make so as to reduce the medicines they take and improve their long-term conditions. And I'm telling you this because I'm a pharmacist, people might think that I'm just happy for people to take any medicine that gets offered to them. But actually, my passion is about reducing the medication load on patients and improving their health. Can I have the first slide, please? Can I have the first slide, please? Otherwise, I could try sharing my screen.
Right. If it's easier for you, please go ahead.
Let's see if I can find it. Okay. There we are. I'm sorry about this.
Okay, that's fine.
Oops. Can you see my screen?
I think if you take yours off, please, because the team has managed to get yours back on.
Okay. I can't see it.
Okay, Paul, do you mind taking it off and let Ifa share her screen for us, please? Apologies, audience, it's a bit of technical issue. But if you can share yours from your side, Ifa, please.
Right, sorry, I think... closed it down, so now I have to find it. Sorry. It's loading. Sorry about this. I can't see it. We're getting there.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Just to. Right. Okay. So this evening I'm going to talk about COVID vaccinations and common questions people have. I've done a lot of engagement work, so I've just picked up on the top questions that people have been asking, and hopefully I can help allay the concerns that people have about taking the vaccine. So what I intend to cover is why we're having this conversation, what's in the vaccines, why vaccination is better than being treated with medicines for COVID, how COVID infects our bodies and how the vaccines are designed to mimic this, a bit about misinformation, long-term effects from the vaccines reported so far, unsupported concerns that COVID vaccines may cause infertility, clinical and public health reasons why it's a good idea to get vaccinated, how and when you will be called for vaccination, and what to expect at the vaccination sites and how to behave afterwards. So why are we having this conversation? As we all know, the BAME community has been disproportionately impacted by COVID. We keep saying this and people will feel that we're just saying it, and I'm going to show you the data that actually proves it. False information has been targeted at us by groups that have their own reasons why they're doing this. When patients are called for vaccination, 20-30% of those called from the BAME community do not turn up, whereas in the other communities, it's 2 to 3%. And if this continues, when lockdown ends, the virus will continue to spread in our community and continue to impact us. This study shows that 72% of Black Britons say they're unlikely to take the vaccine. And we know this is because we have low trust, and also there has been historical issues of unethical healthcare research that has been done to us. And therefore, when clinical trials are done, Blacks are underrepresented in the trials because of the mistrust. And therefore, we think that, when a study is done, it doesn't really apply for us and it probably might not work for us. And however, in the Oxford Astrazeneca
At World
trial
Remit,
and
we
the
understand
Pfizer
what the
trial,
journey is
10%
about.
of participants
How it can
were from
sometimes
the
take a
Black
little
community.
distance to bring us a little closer together.
These are charts that I want to show you, and these come from 3 boroughs, one of which is mine.
With ways
in
to
North
save more when
London,
you
about
send
how
more.
COVID actually impacts
World Remit
us.
is here
when we
for
talk
you,
about
so
people
you can
dying,
be there
we
for
don't
them.
really actually picture it, but I just want to show you here. So the first age band, which is under 35, you can see that although
At World
we
Remit,
didn't have
we
a
understand
higher
what the
than
journey
average
is
death rate
about.
in that
How it can
age band,
sometimes take a
the
little
highest death rate
distance
were
to bring
in
us
the
a little
Blacks.
closer
Now, when you
together.
look at 35 to 64, again, the Blacks had the highest
With ways
death
to
rate,
save more when
followed
you
by the
send more.
Asians.
World Remit
64
is
to
here for
74
you,
age
so
band,
you can be
the
there
Blacks had
for
the
them.
highest death rate, followed by the Asians, and over 75 again, it was the Blacks followed by the Asians. Now, I
At World
mentioned
Remit,
the Asian
we understand
population
what the
because on the
journey is
next
about.
slide, as you will
How it can
see,
sometimes take a
this is
little
the
distance
uptake of
to bring us a little
vaccines
closer
in the Black
together.
population in the borough where I work. And we have more
With
white
ways to
people in
save
the
more
borough,
when you send
but
more.
they have taken,
World
so
Remit
far,
is here for
those who were
you, so
vaccinated.
you can be there
And
for
this
them.
is data from the 13th of February this year. So it's age 65 and above, and it's the extremely clinically vulnerable patient
At
group.
World Remit, We
vaccinated.
understand what the journey is about.
75% of the
How
white
it can
population
sometimes take
came
a little
for their
distance.
vaccines. The Asians are following closely behind. Remember, they also suffered from high deaths from COVID. But look at us, the Black population, 45% of us only went for our vaccines. So it looks like, you know, the Asians also had unethical things done to them health-wise, but they are picking up the message and they're protecting themselves. But we, the Blacks, are still not going for our vaccines as we should. And we are disproportionately affected compared to the white population. So I just want to talk about what's in the vaccines because people seem to be very concerned about what's in them. There's no alcohol, no pork, fetal material, mercury or aluminium, of course, for concern, because that's what most people are concerned about. In the Pfizer vaccine, we have a tiny part of the code for the spike protein of the virus, which is not enough to make us ill, but to train our immune systems. We have some lipids, so this is fat from plant sources to encapsulate this code. We have some salts, so we've got potassium salts, sodium salts, and some sugar, and that's all there is in the Pfizer vaccine. The Oxford Astrazeneca vaccine is what we call a vector vaccine, and we're using a weakened virus that causes colds in chimpanzees, and within that we have the code for the spike protein. We also have some L-histidine, and this is found in many foods like nuts and eggs and meat. We have magnesium salts. We have polysorbate 80, which is found in foods. It's used to make ice cream smooth. We have a little bit of ethanol that is similar to what's found in bread and fruits. We have some sugar, some sodium salts, and water for injection. So many people say, why can't we just get treatment for COVID? Why do we have to have a vaccine? And I put a table here to show you the reasons why having a vaccine is much better. So vaccines are designed to prevent disease without being sick or only getting mildly sick. But for treatment with medicines, you need to be ill before you're treated. And the medicines may or may not reduce the severity of the disease. Vaccines target the virus or bacteria that causes the disease, and it teaches your body to use its own natural systems to fight the disease. When you use medicines, you'll need several different medicines to treat the different symptoms of the disease. And it's really cumbersome to design medicines for each of the symptoms. Because I remember my cousin who was sick in the first wave. She was on ICU. Thank God she survived. She had renal failure. She had pneumonia. She had to have a respirator. And also she had clots, so she had to have a blood thinner. And, you know, she just had so many other medicines just to try and control her. Thank God she survived. Okay, from vaccines, the frequency of vaccination could be yearly, every 3 to 10 years, or sometimes one treatment can last you a lifetime. But when you're treated with medicines, you would need several doses taken over a period of time. Vaccinations can eradicate or actually eliminate diseases, as we've seen in smallpox and polio. But medicines may or may not work for everyone. How far they work and how long they work or how they'll be effective for is unknown for each individual. Vaccine side effects usually last about a maximum of 3 days. Now, all medicines have side effects, even paracetamol has side effects, and sometimes you would need to take medicines to combat the side effects of the original medicine. So here I have put a graph together on how COVID infects us. And I think if you understand this cell biology, it's really, really simple. You'll understand how the vaccines work better and probably not be so anxious about having the vaccine. So on my slide here, on the top left-hand corner, I've drawn the COVID virus with the spike proteins and its genetic material. In the middle of the diagram, we have the human cell. So when you get infected, when you inhale it, it goes through your mucous membranes. The COVID virus comes into the environment where the cell is and attaches to your cell with a cell receptor. And then it infuses, that's from 1 to 2, into the cell. When it gets into the cell, it opens up and it releases this genetic material along with some enzymes. Now, once it's the genetic material is released, we have a factory in our cell. That factory is there, it works for us, it helps us, it keeps us alive. Let's say you give it proteins to make insulin, it will make insulin. Whatever protein you give to it, it will make. Once it sees the genetic material of the virus, it will replicate it. Remember, viruses cannot replicate on their own, they need a host, and our body is the host, and that's where they get replicated. Now, at the bottom left-hand corner, you will see our cell nucleus, and this contains our DNA. Our DNA, and you know, this cell nucleus is not involved in the process at all. So therefore, the cell factory makes more viral particles. The enzymes that came in with the virus will repackage the virus and produce more viral particles, and they get expelled into the cell outer membrane. And as it does this, it damages the human cell, and that's why we get inflammation in our lungs and mucus forms. So here we have the mRNA vaccine. What the scientists did, they looked at the spike protein and they looked at the genetic code that made it up, which is just a string of amino acids. And they put that together and they call that the mRNA sequence. Once they've done that, they had to put it in a lipid protein because injecting just that sequence alone into our body, it wasn't stable, and they made the vaccine. They inject this into our body, and this particle infuses into the human cells, opens up, and the genetic material that codes for the spike protein is seen by our cell factory, and it reproduces it. So it reproduces more spike protein. Again, you see the cell nucleus is there on the left. It's not involved. That's where our DNA is. This mRNA doesn't go into our DNA. It doesn't alter our DNA. Spike protein gets presented on the cell, on the surface of the cell, and our body notices this as foreign and generates an immune response, and antibodies are produced. The mRNA gets disbanded within about a few hours, 48 hours, and that's the end of it. It doesn't remain in our body. It's not going to change us in years to come. How the Oxford Astrazeneca vaccine works, the spike protein again is coded and it's put in this virus, and that infects our body. This is the same way it infuses into the cells. Our cell factory reads the protein for the spike and reproduces spike protein, and this is displayed on the outer part of our cells. Our bodies notice it and generates the immune response. Now, to generate immune response, it takes up to 2 weeks. And therefore, that's why it's important to have the vaccine, and then you only get protection after 2 weeks. If you get infected with COVID, you don't have 2 weeks to build up immune response to it. And that's why people get sick very, very quickly before 2 weeks. Some people, by 2 weeks, they've passed away because their body didn't have time to build up the immunity. Okay, so disinformation. Panorama had a really good program on about 3 weeks ago about disinformation, why people do it. And they looked at, it's mainly put out by anti-vaxxers who target vulnerable groups. They also do it so that they can get a large following. And they also ask their followers to donate money. So it's all sort of, you know, they have their motives why they do it. When you get information, check the source of information. If you're unsure, do not pass it on. When you pass information on, you pass it on to those you love, your friends and, you know, and family, and they feel, oh, it's coming from a trusted source. So it must be genuine that you believed it, so they should believe it. So it's really important. If you can't verify it, don't pass it on, because it tends to cause a lot of anxiety in the people who receive it. Normally on the platforms, the social media platforms, the loudest people who talk about the vaccines and post all these things that make us anxious, they don't know anything about it. They don't know the facts. They don't know the science, you know. So really, we shouldn't be trusting, unless it's coming from a virologist or immunologist. Really, you know, we can't be trusting people who send these things on. Many people also on the platform, you might think that, oh, because there's a lot of anti-vaxxer material on the platform, people might not be taking it, but people are taking the vaccines among the Black community, but they wouldn't want to say it because of the heated debates that happen on the platform. They don't want to be, identified as, not going along with the group. In 1885, during the smallpox epidemic in Montreal, there was a doctor called Dr. Alexander Ross, and he was a very staunch anti-vaxxer. But whilst he was discouraging people from being vaccinated, he himself went away and got vaccinated. So we all need to think about, make decisions for ourselves. Unsupported concerns about infertility. So this was started by misinformation. It was suggested that the spike protein on the virus has an amino acid sequence that is similar to that of a protein called syncytin-1, which is really important for implantation of the fetus during reproduction. And therefore, if we generate antibodies against the virus, the spike protein, will be generating antibodies against this protein. So that's why people were thinking that it would affect infertility. But this is completely unfounded, and the body will never confuse these two proteins. Moreover, the overlap of the proteins that are similar is very, very short. They looked at a study that looked at pregnancies during the early part of the pandemic, and they compared it to pregnancies that happened before the pandemic, and attendances at the clinics were the same. Now, antibodies caused by natural COVID infection and the virus and the vaccine are the same. And they were saying that if it was true that the vaccine will cause infertility, then also the antibodies from natural infection would cause infertility. And in the clinic attendances, they didn't see any reduction. So therefore, it's unfounded. Right, okay, side effects. So we need to finish really quickly. Here in the UK, we vaccinated so far by the 14th of February, over 18.7 million people. Overwhelmingly, the side effects reported are injection sites, reactions, so that's a sore arm, flu-like symptoms like headache, chills, tiredness, feeling sick, dizziness, weakness, aching muscles, and these never lasted long. It didn't cause any serious side effects. There were a few isolated cases of anaphylactic shock, but that is really rare. And we've vaccinated over 100 million people worldwide. If there were serious side effects, they would have been picked up. But so far, the side effects that we're seeing are similar to what we get from routine vaccines. And overall, the experience that we're picking up is similar to what was seen in the clinical trials. The expected benefits from the vaccine in preventing the disease far outweighs, what you would get from side effects. So, you really shouldn't be worried about that. Also, in the trials, there was reports of facial paralysis, and our regulatory body has been monitoring the side effects to see if facial paralysis is more in those who are vaccinated. And we're finding that the incidence is the same for people who haven't been vaccinated. So we shouldn't be worried about that. So you can download the Yellow Card app to report side effects. That's how side effects are being reported to our regulatory body. And even if you haven't been vaccinated, you can download this app and monitor the side effects that people are reporting, just to make you rest assured. Okay. Right, so public health reasons why it's a good idea to get vaccinated. Vaccination will help prevent you from getting COVID and becoming seriously ill, even from the variants that we're picking up, the South African variant, even if that our vaccines are not so effective against, at least it's preventing people from becoming hospitalized and dying. So it's a good thing to get vaccinated with what we have so far. Scientists are working on second generation vaccines now that will be effective against the variants that are emerging. The risk of severe illness and death from COVID far outweighs the benefits of natural immunity. You know, some people are saying that I'll wait for my immunity to work. I don't mind catching COVID. When you catch COVID, you might have mild symptoms, you could have severe, and unfortunately, you could also die. And also, if you don't die and you have a severe infection, you can have a disability that will last a lifetime after you've had COVID. So waiting for your your immune system to deal with it is not really a good idea. Evidence suggests that after 3 months, if you've caught COVID, catching it again within 3 months is rare, but still some people have caught it after having it already. So thinking that, oh, I have antibodies and therefore I don't need to be vaccinated, you can catch it again. Some people have it mild again, they have it more severe, and unfortunately I was reading a paper where it said 2 people who caught it again actually died. So it's best to have the vaccine to generate a proper immune response to protect you. Vaccination will help protect you by preventing you from being sick because you have antibodies and you don't have to experience the sickness. And getting vaccinated might also help prevent you from spreading it to other people. Data coming out from Israel is showing that it is being, you know, even after the first dose, people are not transmitting COVID to other people. So it looks like the vaccines are working excellently. And also vaccination is an important tool for us to, come out of the pandemic. It's all dependent on the number of people willing to be vaccinated. The more vaccinated, the more likely we are to get on top of the pandemic. So how and when will you be called? At the moment, we're calling people over 65 and people with underlying health conditions. If you've missed your call, you can, phone your GP, phone 119 and, get your vaccine booked. And what to expect at the vaccination sites, the people there are highly professional and it's run by doctors, nurses and pharmacists. Social distancing will be carried out at all times. You will have an assessment before you have your vaccine to make sure you're fit and healthy and you're not allergic to any of the components of the vaccines. After you've been vaccinated, you will be monitored for a short while to make sure you're not suffering from side effects. You need to practice the protocols after you've been vaccinated because your antibodies will take at least 2 weeks to build up to protect you. And and even after the second vaccine, you need to maintain the protocols. So consider vaccination. If you already haven't been vaccinated, consider encouraging your friends and family to be vaccinated. If you have doubts, speak to a professional. Don't share information you can't verify. Do not make decisions for others not to get vaccinated, as if they become sick, you might feel really bad about that. If you haven't been vaccinated, go online, book, and reduce your risk of poor outcomes from COVID by making manageable lifestyle changes. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Ifa, for such a good presentation. If you don't mind to unshare your screen so that we can start to see each other. But I just want to let everybody know we apologize. There's been a bit of technical issue behind the scenes, which at some point disabled your chat room conversation. So it's now resolved if you want to go back and put some information there. We're going to go straight. We've got 15 minutes and I'm going to try and share with my esteemed panelists. The next panel we have will be Imam Chadre to give us. As you all know, faith is a key part of our community, whether here in UK or around the world or in Ghana. And faith is one aspect that is always a question when it comes to matters of this nature for genuine reasons. But I think at this point we need to get some people who can articulate aspects of faith in relation to this vaccine and in relation to what the world has endured over the past almost 1 year. So I welcome my next guest to give an opening presentation just from his perspective of Islamic faith, so that we can, those of our community who belong to that faith as well, can also understand where we stand when it comes to how faith plays in. Imam Chadre, please take over.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to share screen?
Yes, I think you're a co-host, so you should be able to.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share the issues that have been raised in the Muslim communities. So I myself, I'm based. I live in East London. In terms of my working pattern, I'm in the Southeast London, and I'm also in North London. So I have some coverage in terms of the communities and some of the issues that are raised, and certainly with the current pandemic and the vaccine that's coming up. And that's been taking place and is coming up into the communities. How is the community dealing with this? And what are the questions that are being raised to the imams? So, in the Muslim community in the UK, we have the Islamic. We have a board of imams and scholars, and what they have done is with many things, not just the vaccine, but general anything in that has that's faced by the Muslim community. They will take all of the issues, they will discuss, and they will consult the relevant people. So some of the issues and questions that have been raised, I've put in this one slide. So it's only one slide that I'll be sharing, but I'll be teasing some areas from these topics that I've put in. So vaccine versus trusting God. So one of the questions that I've heard many times, and is put forward to imams and in the community, is why should I take a vaccine if I have trust in God? So does this not undermine my reliance upon my God? Does this not undermine my faith? Does this not shake my true belief in my God? And the answer to that is that yes, trust in God is really important, and that's why there are many terminologies within Islam where if we hear something good, we'll say thanks to God. If something that is something that's spectacular that's taking place, we would again mention the name of God. If something that is really difficult that's taken place, something that is drastically negative in our lives, we will still mention the name of God. I.e., in every aspect of our lives, the idea is that we'll mention the name of God. So how does the vaccine fit in with my understanding of my God and my belief in my God? And the answer to it is that during the Prophet's time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, one of the companions came with his camel, and he left his camel and he came towards the Prophet. So the Prophet asked him, "Will you not tie the knot of your camel?" And he said, "I have trust in God." To this the Prophet responded saying, "First tie the knot of your camel and then have trust in God." I.e., yes, we should rely upon God and have trust in God that he will look after me, and he is the most powerful, etc., and with all of his qualities. But at the same time, God has provided me with different things around me that I can take benefit from, and one of them is treatment. One of them, within that vaccine. So therefore, by taking this vaccine, I'm tying the knot, I'm securing myself, and I'm also having trust in God. So one does not cancel the other, but in actual fact, we can put them in line with each other. So that's one area. Now, if we dive a bit more deeper into this, what about seeking vaccine? How does that fit into the Islamic medical ethics? And if we tease more out of this, we can see that when something is done and it's the specialists in that field have done the research, they have had the consultation, there is evidence that is being provided. With all of this intact, the scholars will seek advice from those people, and that's why in one of the verses in the Quran it says that when you are not sure, seek advice and go to the people of knowledge, i.e., people of that speciality. Approach them. So a scholar, a minister of religion, cannot give confident information upon medicine if that is not their field. In the same way, if a medical practitioner was to give religious advice to someone, someone would say, stay in your lane. So that's why we need a bit of balance here. And that's why scholars and medical consultants and practitioners and specialists and researchers should get together and consult upon these matters, which has been done. And that's why the board of imams and scholars, they have sought advice from the relevant people and have come to these conclusions, which I'm about to talk about. So in terms of ingredients, so when it comes to medication, sometimes we'll find alcohol inside, sometimes there is gelatin product, some other pork product. And as mentioned before, and it might be mentioned again, that it has come, evidence show that these vaccinations do not contain alcohol, nor do they contain pork. Therefore, from an Islamic perspective, there is no issue in terms of ingredients. Having said that, even if there is something that that contains gelatin, if there is no other alternative, and this vaccine, there is evidence to show that this will bring much better improvement in terms of the person's well-being and the people around them, then if there is no other alternative, then a person is able to seek help and benefit from that vaccine. However, if there are two versions and one contains gelatin and the other one doesn't, then the advice is that you go for something that doesn't contain, because the alternative is available. Another question that's being raised is, fetal cells. How does this fall in line with Islamic understanding? Would this not be forbidden, etc.? And again, that's been mentioned that the vaccination that's available, they do not contain this, and therefore the scholarly boards and the community imams, they have come to the conclusion that from Islamic perspective there is no issue here. Another question that's raised is, are we not injecting ourselves with a virus? I.e., why would we cause ourselves harm? And the answer to that is that when we look at principles in our Islamic understanding of things, there is harm and there is something else with greater harm. And what we would try to do is cancel one with the other. So we would go something which has less harm to avoid something that has more harm. So by taking a vaccination which may give us side effects for maybe a couple of days, which may be mild, and maybe for some it might be slightly more, but that in comparison to what the potential it has to save someone from, then we can see here the greater good is saving one's life, bringing betterment to them, and keeping their loved ones safe as well. So that would take precedence over a side effect that may last 1 or 2 days. So therefore, yes, we may be injecting ourselves with something that contains something that might give us some side effects, but on the other hand, it is helping ourselves to keep ourselves safe from this pandemic, giving us better protection, and also protecting the people, our loved ones, which is the greater good. The next question that we've had is, well, from an Islamic perspective, is it my responsibility to encourage others? Would I be questioned by God? Say that, oh, you had this, you had this knowledge, you had this research, you had these results, you had this evidence, why did you not share? And the answer to that is, when we have something that is evidence, the evidence is there, it's backed up by the relevant people, there are more than 2-3 opinions, and a group of that speciality have come together to say, here is the evidence, this is the correct way, and this has much more benefit than anything else, therefore we will encourage this. So for a Muslim within the community, the idea is that anything that is good, we would encourage others. It doesn't mean to say that we force it upon others, but we should encourage. And this moves to our last point, which is when we share news, there are certain etiquettes, and the Quranic guideline is that when you receive news, first verify before you pass on. And in this age of social media, WhatsApp, Instagram, etc., it is very easy for us to receive some information that may seem very clear and make sense to us, and suddenly we pass it on without verifying, without asking the person, where did this come from? Who is that person? What credentials do they have? And before we know it, it's passed on to many, many people within the community, and it's passed on, worldwide. So the etiquette is verified. That's why, if you are in doubt, ask those who are specializing in this field. If you are not sure, do not share with others. If you have questions, ask the person who have sent this message to you, or has given this news. What do you mean by this? Please clarify for me. And then take it on. Okay, now that I see that I've asked and removed any doubts, and I've come to the conclusion that this is the correct news, and is verified by the correct people and the relevant group and specialists in that field. Okay, now I can pass it on. And then there will be etiquettes of how to pass it on, using the correct channels, having sensible conversations without letting our emotions take over, but using evidence-based results that we can show that this is what it means, this is what you can do, this is the potential, and then we can move forward. So for the Muslim community and the community at large, I hope some of these can help in debunking some of the myths that have come up and some of the issues that have come up in communities. But yeah, any questions, please put it on the messaging, and we can also look at this afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Chadre. Thank you for such an elaborate conversation. We thank you for your grace and wisdom and intellect in the areas that you are spoken about. We will move straight. Time is not on our side, so we will try and merge a lot in together. The next panel is our own Bishop Francis Sapon. Bishop has already taken his vaccination, and he wants us to share the pictures of his first vaccination, where he was wearing the blue, and the one that he only took yesterday, where he's wearing his, the usual theological outfit, to just show that he's a minister of God, a theologist, and still can believe that there is something that he can take to keep going. Before Bishop speaks, we have a small video to show you, so we can lead Bishop to his conversation in a brief.
When vaccination is the clearest route out of the pandemic, speed matters. And the UK is a world leader, with some in government believing that all adults could be offered their first dose by the summer. But it's not the offer of a jab that matters, it's whether people actually get it. And lower uptake of the vaccine among Britain's ethnic minority community is a serious concern. People from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups are more likely to die from COVID-19 than white people, but there's also higher levels of hesitancy towards the vaccine. Birmingham Ladywood is one of the most diverse constituencies in the country. Their Labour MP, Shabana Mahmood, says she's fielding calls from worried constituents regularly.
What I've been picking up from doctors and other people on the front line in my constituency is that there is much more vaccine hesitancy among some of our Black, Asian and other ethnic minority communities. They're picking up many more people who are saying no, that they don't want the vaccine, and they are concerned about it. So, that's been flagged with me by local GP practices in my own constituency, and I know that others in Birmingham are doing the same.
Figures from the Royal College of GPs, shared exclusively with Sophie Ridge on Sunday, shows that 91% of people who've received a vaccine are white, and only 5% come from Asian backgrounds. Just 2% are black and 1% mixed race. To put it another way, 14% of white people have received at least one dose so far, compared to just 9% of Asian people, 7% of black people, and 5% who are mixed race. White people are twice as likely to have had a vaccine than black people, and more than 3 times more likely than the mixed race population. Dr. Michael Dawes is a junior doctor from Birmingham who's been on the front line in the fight against COVID-19 since the beginning. He's been shocked at some of the things he's heard from nurses on his own wards.
It really shocked me when nurses would actually go and tell people, don't take the vaccine. But what really got me the most is when I heard one of the nurses I spoke to say, come on, you call your black nurses, auntie, come on, auntie, we need to go get this vaccine, da, da, da. And she's like, no, my pastor said no. And I'm like, what? And that shocked me. It got me angry. And I said to her, give me your pastor's number and let me speak to your pastor.
Thank you, Bishop Sapon. As you can see, religion, culture, and tradition is in total conflict with ourselves and everything else that we are going through. And as you can hear the doctor say, my pastor said I shouldn't take the vaccine. Please take it over from now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quayson. And also I want to say thank you to the Imam and also the doctor and all the panelists and everybody who is on. I want to also say thank you to my congregation and friends who will be watching. Well, I have just some few minutes to talk about the religious aspect of this vaccine. First, as you saw, I've taken my 2 shots. I took the first one in January, and I took the second one just about, I think, yesterday. And to introduce myself, I'm a Christian. I was born again at the age of 12. I've been a Christian all my life. I've also been to Bible school in Africa. I've been to one of the best Bible schools here. I'm a bishop of so many churches. We believe in prayer. We believe in spirituality. The name of my church is Calvary Charismatic Baptist Church. The nickname is Prayer Temple. So it's not somebody who don't believe in the Spirit of God or faith things that is talking. Somebody who believes everything that any Christian believes. For my short time, I want to address this in 3 areas. A situation, the repercussion of the situation, and the solution. Now, what situation do we find ourselves in? Over 100 million people have been infected by this virus. Over 2 million people have died. In the United States, over 500,000. In India, over 250,000. In the UK, over 100,000. In South Africa, which is Africa, nearly 50,000 people. So we have a situation here. Unless we from the faith background don't believe in this. Now, is this situation different from what we have seen before? Or if we go to the Bible, we will find that we had a similar situation. What we are facing is pandemic, is infectious disease, and it will interest you to know that even in the Bible, from the book of Leviticus, there was a similar situation. There was a pandemic, and God himself gave instructions to the prophet Moses as to how to handle it. Let me just read something quickly from Leviticus chapter 13, verse 45. Quickly, I want to read it so that you know what was instructed. This was the instruction when there was a pandemic in the Old Testament. And this was written by Moses. If you pick it from verse 1, he says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses. This is God himself speaking to Moses in recognition of an infectious disease in the community, be it leprosy, be it COVID, whatever it is. The Lord himself spoke to Moses to address this infectious disease. And if you go to verse 45, this is what the instructions was. And a leper whom in the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering over his mouth. So covering over his mouth like, do you have any of that? This is exactly what he's talking about in the Bible. Put a covering over his mouth and shall cry unclean, unclean, meaning nobody should come closer to me. When you cry unclean, it means that everybody must stay. So that is social distance right from Leviticus in the Bible. Then you go to the next verse, and the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone, isolation, quarantine. He shall dwell alone without the camp and shall be in the outside of the camp. So over here, you see the same situation in the Old Testament, the same situation that we also find in the 18th century. I just want to read something quickly from one of the Syrian letters from the ancient Syrian in the 18th century BC when there was a pandemic. Furthermore, my Lord shall give orders that inhabitants of the town, as soon as they have been touched, must not enter into untouched towns. Otherwise, it will happen that they have touched the whole town. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that in the Old Testament, God himself gave instructions to Moses that when there's infectious disease, number one, cover your mouth. Number two, social distance. Number three, isolate. If I read on, they give time, isolate for 7 days. You will come back to the priest. And then when you are well, the priest will give you a certificate of health so that you can go about your normal duties. Now, what is the difference between this and the 18th century and what we have now? We have a situation that is a disease that is killing people, already has killed 2.5 million people. Now, what is the repercussion? People are going to die. What is the solution? In the olden days, you isolate, you cover your mouth, you social distance. The same thing applied during the 18th century, and the same thing is applying now. The difference between today and the olden days is that on top of isolation, social distance, and the quarantine, we now have a vaccine. Now, the vaccine we have is just medicine. The doctors have spoken about what is in it and all of that. It's just medicine to heal us so that we can come back to normal. Is there anywhere in the Bible that it says we should not take medicine? No. In the book of Timothy, Paul even told Timothy that take a little wine, or in other words, take a little medicine because of your ailment. Paul himself got ill, Epaphroditus himself got ill, and all of them, Paul advised them to take something. So taking medication, whether it's tablets or vaccination, doesn't make you as an unfaithful Christian. Now, one of the questions that people ask is that, is the vaccination not the Antichrist? Now, if you go through the Bible, there are views of the Antichrist. And if I had quickly, we have 4 views of the Antichrist. Those who believe we call the premillennialist, or the postmillennialist, or the amillennial. The premillennialists believe that Jesus will come rapture us before the Antichrist. The post think that we are in it right now. And the amillennial believe that from the resurrection of Jesus, we started the 1,000 years. Now, majority of the Christians believe in premillennialism, meaning there'll be rapture before the Antichrist. And every Christian looking at me right now would know that the rapture is a big teaching in the Bible. Now, if we, the same preachers, say that the vaccine is the Antichrist, then what we are saying is that we have been raptured, or the rapture has already happened, and now we are left behind. But you and I know that the rapture has not happened. Therefore, the Antichrist is not here. So the vaccine is not the Antichrist, because the Antichrist will come after the rapture. Other questions that people also ask is the fact that when I take the vaccine, does it mean I'm faithless? You are not faithless. God himself gave instructions to Moses that go and isolate the people. Now, who was Moses? The most important miracle worker in the Bible. He divided the Red Sea. But despite that, God recognized that when you live in a society, there'll be infectious disease. You do all the isolation and you also obey signs. So, my fellow believers and those who are on, I have a lot to say, but as you can, my time is up. What I want to assure is that there is no biblical base. The vaccine is not antichrist. As you saw, I have taken my 2 shots. I'm no antichrist. I'm still doing revivals. I'm still preaching. I'm still saving souls. Nothing has happened to me. I'm stronger as before. So therefore, if somebody tells you that my pastor has said this, there's no basis in scripture to tell us that the vaccine is antichrist or we cannot be vaccinated. If God himself gave instructions to Moses, the most miracle worker, to apply science and apply physical health to a situation that happens, then we have to listen to what our doctors are saying, what the government is saying. There's no basis in scripture. I've seen pastors teaching negatively, but none of them are based on scripture. I want to urge you, encourage you, when you are called to take the vaccine, take it. I've taken my 2 shots, and I will encourage everybody listening to me, my congregation members, and all the community, that the only way we're going to stop this death is when we take the vaccine. As I'm speaking, we are doing service from our houses. When do we come back? It's only when everybody has taken the vaccine. You don't go to hell by taking a vaccine. You go to hell, or you become an unbeliever, you go to hell by rejecting Jesus Christ. So that is the teachings of the scriptures. So don't please use the vaccination as when you take it, then you are going to hell, or God is going to be angry with you. The only way you become the Antichrist is when you yourself personally refuse to believe in his son. So I want to use this to encourage everybody to make sure that you go and take your vaccine. I'll be there for other questions because I have a lot to share. But because of time, I want to give my other panelists time to speak. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bishop. Thank you so much. Now you've taught me a lot in my own faith and others that I'm sure were in my own position. Yes, I have taken my vaccine, so I know that we can all do so, and I love the theological background that you've presented. We'll go straight to the traditional aspect. As we are all from the traditional and cultural background, there is also conflict there. Anywhere you turn the radio, any WhatsApp message that comes, it's either one thing or the other. And today we have somebody who is one of our own and also a key member of our community here in the UK and in Ghana, Her Royal Highness Na Tsoso the First, to give us her view from traditional and cultural perspective. What does she think about the situation we find ourselves in? Before Her Majesty speak, we will have a clip that we want to show so she can talk to the issues along with the little that she may add to it. And then we'll open the Q&A session. I'm mindful of time.
Second wave Africa COVID-19
started from South Africa.
Second one no. Ya said they're designing in such a way say emekum Africans as they started doing. Sabi Bruce sabi nya Jimmy na doso. Sam second wave here by ye. Se see an ye dia and the president boa.
Boa say.
And you know boa ko be dey say dan kosoro vaccines na no pese wontra. Wo dada ye wo boa.
Famu na dada is say abai.
Na Ghana ya wo boa hu ya. Say ade de ekoi, say de ni hu tie.
Asete sampa.
Na sete sampa. Na wo se won to schools nim. Wo mayem fast strict measures into ho. Na ye ndi so dia. Na chesa wo boa, wo kwato vaccine abewo yen.
Na vaccine no.
Ento ye dada akra. Na ye ba hyehye yen. Say vaccine ba na man wa mewu. Vaccine nso enya dwuma hui.
This is Angel. And what will be?
From high away, I will tell you and tell you again. Ghana, you COVID the draw.
Oh, COVID the draw, yeah.
Ghana, yeah, COVID the draw and yeah, immune booster.
COVID the draw, yeah, new and
that's all my research at the third time. Nibima, yes, Professor, you could have Yakuno. COVID, the Yakuni be. So, Professor, no research.
Oh, okay, Professor Planjou.
And then first person, first person, you know, first person, I covered the cool. There make up farmer, Mogana farmer, then the ecologist.
Penny Fwakasia, Enya COVID will chrome ham, penny Fwakasia, Enya COVID, no, and take a drone at the Mawanum. Mommy, Yaman cancer will chrome out 102.9. And Mommy, me and cancer. Second wave radio at Chimkola. It's now watch this. Africa. You see the conspiracy theory behind this. I don't know if our leaders are thinking. But who to succeed Yabrifu so that the brain inside of her, or who to succeed her, no, young white people. Eti se said yeah. Second wave nearby, no, African kwada, African kwada, a chiwon. A 11 months old baby, 7 days old baby. She is school here, and I dare to say, we are not false hope.
President in the fellow Ghanaians last one. Sanka Trotro or reduce the numbers in the no dear. Would your own mom, lockdown or reduce the numbers in the Trotro? And so reduce the numbers because if you tell me, say, me to me no wedding. It is up to me.
Wow, protect my child. Near maybe I say me yaje de say omboa.
Omboa na.
Your numbers Nkosuohene artificial.
Nipa found it something na wo.
Necessary na say dey ampa. Say ya ampa dey a. Ada dey agro two ho. Second way.
Okay. Thank you very much. We don't want to give this sort of talk an airtime, and we just wanted to reflect the reality on the ground. And so, Nachicho, please forgive us, but we wanted you to look at such a description of conversation on a national radio and how people who otherwise cannot articulate the understanding of the vaccine, how they will take it from cultural, our tradition, the sort of things that they are describing and others are forwarding it to all of us around the world. Where does our culture and tradition sit with the fact about where we are today? Please take over. Shall we, can we unmute Chuchu, please, for us? Please bear with that. We have few technical issues behind the scenes and it's creating an issue, but I'm sure. Now, are you able to do it on your... Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, yes.
Right. I would like to say good evening to everybody and to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting me to participate in this program. And I will follow the lead of our pastor and thank my fellow panelists. Now, I want to approach this tradition. You've got to love Captain Smart. You really have to. I want to approach my presentation from a three-dimensional perspective. And I think when you talk about cultural beliefs and cultural attitudes, you have to look at it in a wholesome fashion. And I'm glad to see that all my predecessor speakers have touched on some of the things that combine to cause what is essentially fear. Some of the cultural and traditional beliefs are led by nothing but fear. People are afraid, and the three dimensions of that is our belief system. And then you look at the history of vaccines, especially as relating to the African continent. And then you look at the reception of our traditional remedies, how the world has received it, how the medical profession has received it, and of course, how the WHO has received it. And I believe that this has caused some of the fear that we're seeing now. So I will take each in turn And before I go on, I have to say, I haven't managed to take my vaccine yet, but I have been placed on the list and I'm waiting to be called, and I will definitely be going for the vaccine. And I know other traditional rulers who have already taken the vaccine and are absolutely fine. My very own mother has taken the vaccine at my encouragement, and she's absolutely fine. And so what are some of the beliefs that are fueling this fear? We've heard a number. Some in our society believe that the virus itself is a curse. Others believe it's a result of witchcraft. And we believe that taking the vaccine will cause infertility, as has been mentioned before, not only in women, but on the part of men, is going to make their manhood either shrink or stop working. And we all know that men in our society cherish their manhood for various reasons. And that is fueling quite a lot of fear. Of course, we've heard the 5G theories, which says that these 5G networks being erected across the country is what is creating this COVID condition. And the vaccine will make that worse. We've heard that if we take the vaccine, the mark of the beast will be put upon us. So from the religious perspective, the mark 666 will be introduced in our system. We've heard from the Islamic perspective that, there's pork and other things in the vaccine, which goes against the religion. From my own country, Ghana, and among my Ga people who reside near the sea, I have heard people say that the fact that they live next to the sea means they're immune to the virus and therefore the vaccination is not needed. Others have said it's a money-making scheme and designed for population control, to make the rich richer and to alter our DNA. But, we look at these and some of us chuckle. However, we know that, as I said earlier, the anti-vaccine agenda is in our community is fueled by real fear. And I think until we tackle the fear, we will not be able to get the numbers to go and take the vaccine that we want, although we must encourage people to go. And apart from our belief system, the other thing is the history of vaccines. I will mention just a couple. We saw, we have research, and Reuters reported this at the time. The polio vaccine was taken to the continent, and unfortunately, something within the vaccine mutated and created more problems than was designed to solve. In the end, that was resolved, but people had contracted polio by taking the vaccine. And also with the Ebola vaccine, we saw how there were no vaccines until certain people in the world system caught Ebola, and then suddenly there was a vaccine. And then we have the question of how quickly this particular COVID-19 vaccine has been developed. The fact that it normally takes years and this was developed very quickly has caused a level of anxiety that perhaps the research is not as robust as we would like. And then something else which has caused fear, which is not so vaccine related, is the fear and distrust of, I suppose, not just the medical profession, but the research profession as well. So we have had recently finding out that the Johnson & Johnson baby powder that we all grew up on had carcinogenic asbestos in them and potentially harmful to us. And I'm mentioning these not to create fear, but to explain the reasoning behind some of our cultural beliefs and some of the fear that's fueling people from my culture and yours, and I think most of yours as well. And then we come to the third element, the reception of our traditional remedies. We heard what happened with Madagascar when the WHO, they came up with their remedies, and WHO came out and said that because they don't feel it has been robustly tested, it was not accepted. We know in our system that when we heard about this virus, most of us went back to our traditional remedies, which was our neem trees, our ginger, our turmeric, and so on and so forth. And we boiled pineapple skins, we put everything together and we drank them in order to boost our immune system. And people within our culture believed that that was enough. And although it did boost our immune systems, we found actually one of the positive sides of this whole situation is that I'm not seeing as many people suffering from colds. And I put it down to the fact that people have been drinking these concoctions. So, and some of these concoctions contain vitamin C, D, whatever, has helped in boosting our immune systems naturally. And so we come, and then of course we have the religious aspect of it, where pastors are encouraging, as we've heard earlier, pastors are encouraging congregation not to go and take the vaccinations. In fact, we heard what happened in Cameroon recently, where a pastor went to lay hands on the population and subsequently died. And when that happened, the population still failed to believe that he had died from the COVID virus. Again, I mention all these things to illustrate the real fear behind why people within our culture are afraid to take this vaccination. And so how do we encourage people to go and take the vaccine? I think that as leaders in our community, especially the traditional fraternity, I think we have a responsibility for those of us who are either on the waiting list or have taken the vaccine. We have a responsibility to put information out there in a positive manner based on not only the scientific elements, but also the cultural elements, the understanding that you are not suddenly going to turn into something you weren't created to be. A man is not going to suddenly become a woman simply by taking a vaccine. And the basis of that is to communicate to our community that the very medications, some of the very medications that we have been taking for years were approved by the same institutions that have approved this vaccine that we need to protect ourselves. And while I can understand the fear, the real fear behind why most in our society do not want to go for the vaccine, I want to be the first to reassure our community that considering the number of people that we have now come to know who have taken the vaccination and who are healthy, who are, well, they're healthy, they're alive, they're thriving, and who haven't died as a result, nor have they grown horns. And I'm very, very pleased to say on behalf of our the men in our community, that their manhood haven't fallen apart. It's very, very, still, they're very active by report and by observation. I can assure you that among our female fraternity, the women who have taken it have not suddenly realized that they have developed cancers in their breast, etc. And so I would like to conclude. There is a lot more that I wanted to say, but I am quite aware that we're time limited, and so I wouldn't take too much time. And I would like to conclude and appeal to the traditional authority. For those of you who are still not convinced, I'd like you to sit down with medical professionals. I'd like you to sit down with not just medical professionals, but other people, to be able to understand, ask the questions you need to ask, challenge some of the assertions that are being made, do your own research like I have done, and then come to the conclusion that at the end of the day, saving the lives of the population is what matters. And if people die as a result of this disease, there will be nobody for traditional rulers to rule over. And with that, I want to say thank you very much. And thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you, Nacho Soyodifes. Thank you very much. At this point, I want to take you to Q&A, but before I do, I want to make a few acknowledgements of people that have joined from our community. We have Reverend George Asumeni, who is the Ghana Union Chair in Leeds, joining us this evening. We also have our brother Odishie Kwesi Ofi from the Ghana Union Midlands, who has joined us. We also have Reverend Emmanuel Agreogo from Superintendent Minister within the Methodist Ecumenical Community here in the UK. We have Dr. Kwe Boche, who is the chair of the Ghana Union Midlands, also with us on the platform. We also have the head of Chancery and acting High Commissioner, who is temporarily taking the role of the High Commissioner here joining us tonight. His name is Kwabena Pepra and Prechum, who I will call him at some point at the latter part of the program to make a few reservations, comments. We will carry on. I do have a few questions that has been put to me that I would have wished to go through, but because of time, I want to give the audience more time than we had pre-event questions that I would like to go through. Let me acknowledge the support that we have got from Ghana Nurses Association, who have come together to help put this program together. Western Region Nurses Association, UK, Nightingale Nurses Association, and of course, the Ghana Union, UK and Ireland. We thank the support from World Remit Money Transfer Company, fast, reliable, efficient, for helping us to put these resources together. Omega Live TV, this program is being televised live around the world by Omega Live. Thank you for your support. And Ghana High Commission for your endorsement of this activity that is going on within our community. Ghanaian Doctors and Dentists Association, we are grateful for your support. At this point, I will take you to the question and answer sessions, please. But before that, we will do another poll just to see where we are, having listened to all the experts who have just spoken and where we are, and so they can at least tailor the rest of the Q&A to your needs. So if we can have the next poll, please. Okay, thank you very much. We've done poll 2 and 3, and we will come back to the last one if need be. But I'll give you the result as we go along. So we will be going straight to Q&A at this point. Time is of the essence, so as I said earlier, please, let's go straight to the questions so that we can answer it in quick succession. I will go through 1 or 2 questions from my side, and then I will leave the rest to the audience. Right. To the scientists who presented the science question, I think this relates to you, but I'm sure any other who can articulate something from the chat room, Dr. Dansu and our sister Olutayo can also speak to that if they have anything. What steps were taken during the vaccine trials and manufacturing to ensuring that ingredients in all known vaccines available are safe for the religious communities, some of whom do not take certain products due to their faith? What steps? So if we have the panelists all on screen, please, that would be helpful so people can see them. What steps were taken to ensure that ingredients in the vaccines do not contain products that are not?
I can answer that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, as I say, I work in medicines management, and we get a lot of queries from members of the public asking about what's in the tablets that they take. And, you know, and this is fed back to, you know, manufacturers. So when they went to produce the the vaccines, they took into cultural beliefs, and that's why we don't have like any pork or fetal material or things like that in the vaccine. So when they were making it, they were aware of what people, you know, are very concerned about, especially the religious groups, because now, you know, it's become more acceptable that when they're making things, medication for patients, they need to consider all the religious groups and, you know, the Jewish, the Muslim, you know, what they can have and what they can't have. So as I said, when I went over the ingredients, you can see that all the ingredients are acceptable to all faiths. I don't know if there's anything else you would like me to add to that. But
I suppose it's fine from what you just said. I'm sure whoever sent that question to us has got the gist of it. The next question I would like to put to our traditional leader now, Chicho, and anybody can join in. My parents only use local herbs treating almost everything, never relied on vaccines, and yet lived a good life and age. Why do I need to take the vaccine when we have plenty of traditional herbs and remedies to cure myself?
Well, my reaction to that question and my response will be that traditional remedies do work. And by all means, I will encourage you to take it. But the COVID vaccine, the COVID virus by its nature is something very unique. And because we're still trying to understand its mutation nature, how it mutates and how it really does affect the human body, where research has been concentrated in that area, and there is a remedy to protect you against the possibility of death, I would suggest that please take, that is the reason why you should take the vaccine and then continue with your natural remedy. I was speaking, and your parents are not unique actually. I was speaking with a colleague of mine a couple of days ago, and they said to me, one of the reasons that I don't want to take the vaccine is because I've never had to take any vaccine. And I questioned them and I said, have you not traveled before? And they said, no, I've only ever traveled within Europe. And I said, well, that explains quite a lot. However, if you have had to travel outside of Europe, you'll probably have had to take a yellow fever vaccine. And unless you're saying your parents have never traveled anywhere, I struggle to see how they've never had any vaccine. And they are still alive, thankfully now. So please go and take the vaccine so that you're protected and you're better, safer than, God forbid, sorry.
Thank you very much, Na. Thank you. Bishop Sapon, if you may articulate this for us, please. My faith tells me that any weapon fashioned against me shall never, ever prosper. So why should I take a vaccine when they are just a scientific weapons being formed against man? Yes, Bishop, please take it over. Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I hope you heard the question.
Please, can you read it again? Because my thing was...
Okay, someone's question that it was emailed to us says, my faith tells me that any weapon fashioned against me shall never ever prosper. And so why should I take these vaccines when they are just a scientific weapons being formed against man?
Well, thank you very much. That's for the person who asked the question. If you look at my assertion, I was talking about the fact that there has never been anywhere in scriptures that says that Christians are against medicine. In fact, I want to read something from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 23. This was Paul talking to Timothy, who was sick. He says, drink no longer water, but use a little wine for your stomach's sake, and then often infirmities. This is Paul talking to Timothy, who was sick, and saying, drink no longer water, use a little wine. In other words, take a little medicine for your infirmity's sake. Now, who was Paul? Was Paul somebody who didn't believe in miracles? In fact, Paul once, if you pick it from Acts chapter 4, 14 verse 3, he went to a place where he was preaching and was looking at somebody and said, rise up and walk. And all of a sudden the person jumped. And even the people said, wow, the gods have come to visit us. This was a miracle worker. This was somebody who believed in supernatural healing. But here is advising Timothy to take a little medication. So once we no weapon fashioned against us will prosper, it doesn't mean that when there is vaccination, when there is medicine, we don't take it. It does not in any way stop you by being faithful. If Paul did it, we can also do it. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. I will take the last one and then I'll go back to the chat room for those who have raised their hands, and then I'll come back to you if I need to. People say that if I gargle hydrogen peroxide regularly, it can stop me from getting severe COVID infection and avoid me being hospitalized. What is your advice on this preventative method instead of the vaccine? I believe Dr. Danso or Olutayo or Famoti or anyone on the panel who can articulate this, please. The idea that you can gargle hydrogen peroxide every morning or evening before you sleep or wherever, and hopefully it should stop you from being severely ill and hospitalized. Can any of you please address it?
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to address that. So so I'm Dr. Danso for people that may not know. I am a GP working in London, and I'm also one of the clinical leads at the local COVID vaccination centre. So with regards to hydrogen peroxide, so a little bit about hydrogen peroxide. So as a GP in my clinic, I use hydrogen peroxide generally to remove earwax from people's ears. So that's what I use hydrogen peroxide for. It breaks down wax really well and removes it from ears. Now, with regards to gargling hydrogen peroxide, if you can imagine what it does to earwax, I'm not sure whether that's best placed inside the oral cavity. Now, also what we have to understand is that, I understand, it's been touched on so many times with regards to the hesitancy that exists, but what we know is that the vaccine is so unique in the sense that it came about very quickly, because if you can imagine, it was a global pandemic. The whole world was affected. There were multiple countries working together to formulate a vaccine to protect their populations as well as the economy. So it happened very, very quickly because all eyes were on it and working towards it. And it's evidence-based. So everything that we do is based on evidence. So we're looking at the data to be able to say, actually, the vaccines are, to a percentage of this much or whatever, to be effective at protecting populations from hospitalization and death. And ultimately, that's what's important. So we want to reduce the number of people dying. We want to reduce the number of people that are in ITU. And simply put, hydrogen peroxide is not going to do that. The vaccine will. And I just want to share something that, just to kind of really push home how serious this is. As I said, I work at the COVID Hub Centre, the vaccination centre, and I was working there last weekend. And the number of people that came in under the age of 55 for their COVID vaccines who actually came in on oxygen. So what people don't realise, and these people had COVID, some of them had spent 2 months in hospital, 3 months in hospital, and they were there waiting to have their vaccination. And they said to me, as the doctor that was supervising, all I want is for people to know how serious this is. Some were black, some were white, some were Asian. And what it is, if they're there after having COVID, after spending 3 months in intensive care, on death's door, and they're having the vaccine to protect themselves because there's a chance of having it again, I just strongly just want to put out there that it's so important that we protect ourselves. And I understand, I'm going on a bit now, but I really understand the hesitancy and the fear. Like, I really do understand. There is a history of Black people in this country in particular being maltreated, not just in the health system, but in the judicial system, in the education system. So it exists, but right now we don't want to, you know, isolate ourselves any further. So if it's really true that, you know, there's conspiracy theories to, you know, stop, you know, infect everybody and regulate the population, surely by excluding ourselves from this vaccine, we're really just doing that to ourselves. So I've had both of my vaccines. I'm quite happy to talk about that at another point, but I'm fine. My parents have had their vaccine as well. So if there's one thing that we take away from this, is that no one is, I think sometimes it can come across as though Black people are ignorant. I don't think that at all. I think it's people just have to understand the history, and I get that. And I think the media as well are really important in how they demonstrate, you know, how they demonstrate the actual situation as well. You do not see, you know, the first people that were having the vaccines on the TV were not Black, they were white. So what message is that subliminally giving to other Black people? Well, then people like me are not having the vaccine, but people like us should have the vaccine, and they are, but you just don't see it. So that's my 2 pence.
Thank you, Dr. Danso. I'm going to move to the chat room, and I'm sure there will be other panel that will have others to say on others that may come. I'll call on Mr. Ofori-Mensah, if we can unmute Mr. Ofori-Mensah for us, please. And in doing so, may I ask the audience to be brief and precise with the question?
Yes. The previous question, or the previous, I think it's the pastor, the question that the pastor reacted to. I think the answer is very simple. The Bible says no weapon fashioned against. What's the evidence that some weapon has been fashioned against anybody? That is the answer to that question. There is no evidence that any weapon has been fashioned against that person who is asking that question. There's no evidence. In other words, what they are saying is that the vaccines are weapons by somebody against the whole world. There's no evidence to that.
Okay.
A simple answer to that person is that where is the evidence that that person is worried about to say that no weapon fashioned against me shall prosper or whatever it is?
Thank you so much. I think that's very clear. But also, it was worth asking because that is what they believe, that the vaccine is a scientific weapon. So we will move on to the next person, Soronia Hajra Shado, also a member of the Ghana Union, but also from a key member from the Islamic community. Hajra, please take it over. Brief and precise. Let's all be brief. We've got a few minutes to close. Can we unmute Hajra, please, for us?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'll try to be very brief. Yeah, from most of the concerns I was going to raise as questions, some of them were addressed by Abdul Chadre and also Bishop Francis Sapon. On a religious basis, there is no justification not to take the vaccine. And as Chadre also clearly said, time of the prophet, when somebody left his camel and said, oh, he will be protected by God, he said, first, you should tie him before putting your trust in God. Because if you tie him, there's a chance that he will not run away. Now, the other comments I have from the Islamic point of view was that at the time of the prophet as well, there were pandemics in some cities, where they send messenger to their prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, please, there's a pandemic, can you come and address it and pray for us or do that? So he said, anybody in the pandemic area, you stay there. Anybody not in the pandemic area, don't travel to the pandemic area. And let them, we will give them guidance on what to do. And once it's better, we will then be able to go there. So just to confirm that social distancing, face masking is compulsory, and there's no religious grounds for not to do them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I will encourage all my Muslim sisters, brothers, mothers to go for the vaccine. I've taken my first one. Nothing has happened to me, and I'm awaiting my second dose. And my family too, some of them have been vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Soronia. Thank you. I will call on Mr. Pepra Amprechum, who is the mission representative. I've seen his hand up to either ask a question, make a contribution, or a representation briefly. And then we'll move on to the other question, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I just wanted to commend you for this program, because I think that it is going to help our people to demystify some of the things. I'm happy that a lot of the questions have been answered. So I just wanted to encourage you to keep on doing this, and then let's all put our hands together and deal with this pandemic once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amprechum. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you. I'll call on Mr. J. Wilson. Mr. J. Wilson, please. Can we unmute Mr. J. Wilson? J. Wilson, please, can we unmute him so that he can ask the question? Or perhaps, Mr. Wilson, if you can try and unmute yourself. Okay, Mr. Wilson is on.
Yeah, okay. Hello, yeah. Thanks for everything. Just want to know, I had a few questions from community members as to whether it is important to do an allergy test before taking the vaccine.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. So at the moment in the UK, and I'm assuming you're in the UK at the moment, we are currently administering the Pfizer vaccine and the Astrazeneca vaccine, also known as the Oxford vaccine. Sorry, can you hear me? I'm not sure, but I'll keep going. So what we do know is that anybody with any severe allergy, so to any medicines such as penicillin, for example, they would not be suitable for the Pfizer vaccine, not because the Pfizer vaccine contains any particular medicines, but the general advice is that if you do have a known allergy, and when I say allergy, I mean an allergy that means that you have an anaphylactic reaction, so your lips swell, tongue swelling, throat swelling, where you would probably have an EpiPen, like I said, most commonly with penicillin, but maybe to other drugs, you are advised to have the Astrazeneca Oxford vaccine. Now, if you're not sure about your allergy status, it is recommended that you speak with your GP for clarification. As well. So you don't require an allergy test, but you should be aware if you do have an anaphylactic reaction to any medicine, not food, any medicine, then you should not be having the Pfizer vaccination.
Thank you, Dr. Danso. I will call on Reverend Emmanuel Agriogo. Please, can we unmute Reverend Emmanuel Agriogo? He's a superintendent minister who also from the Methodist community here in UK and also in Ghana. Want to react to the question about weapons fashioned against us briefly.
Well, Mr. Question, thank you. I would like to say to the, sorry, let me show my video, my face. Yeah, I'd like to address the issue of weapon fashioned against us. God does not want us to be complacent. There are places in the Bible where, in spite of God's supreme power to deliver, he has asked human beings to take action. An example is Judges 7, when Gideon was going to fight the Midianites. God could have asked Gideon not to do anything because the Midianites had fashioned their weapons against Israel. And those weapons shouldn't prosper, even if Israel doesn't do anything. But God asked Gideon to select men. When Gideon took too many people, so that we will see the validity of this statement, no weapon fashioned against us will not prosper, God asked Gideon to reduce the number of men that he was going to war with. But eventually, he went with a small group of people, attacked the Midianites, and succeeded. So the issue of God, weapons fashioned against us will not prosper, is more so, that is the more reason why we should take this vaccine, so that the weapon fashioned against us by the COVID virus will not prosper. God doesn't want us to die. He wants us to live and to tell of his wonderful deeds. And if he's given wisdom to scientists, to doctors, and the medical professionals to come up with something that will help us defeat those weapons fashioned against us, then I think that it is important that we do it. And if the person is afraid, I want him to know that I got my injection yesterday. I was expecting to be maybe ill or something, but nothing happened to me. So you see, no weapon fashioned against me is prospering. I'm here, fit and sound. So go and take it.
Thank you, Reverend Agrego. Thank you for your contribution. I'm going to go and take two more questions, or two or three. As you can see, our time is now approaching, but we want to stay true and get any other information with the successive section. So please do hold on and be with us. I will call on Harriet Ganda. Harriet Ganda, please, to ask the question.
Yes, well, also it's just an encouragement for people who are still skeptical and scared to have the vaccine. I'm a social worker in Liverpool. I had my vaccine. I was skeptical myself. I was scared. I did a bit of research before I went and took my vaccine. And at the end of it, I had to draw a balance sheet, the pros and cons of taking the vaccine and not. And it was, at the end of it, it was better for me to take the vaccine. And after I took my vaccine in January, and I'm fine. So it's just an encouragement for people. If it's your turn and you receive your letters, go and take it, because that is the only way that we are going to get rid of this pandemic. So I'll just ask my fellow Ghanaians, fellow Africans to go and take the vaccine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution. I'll call on Professor P.K. Richardson, to make a contribution or a question. It has to be brief. Everybody that I will call from now on, please be brief, because we don't want to overrun this program.
All right. Kwesi, thank you very much. Just a short note to congratulate you and the Ghana Union for setting this up. I've been part of this and I've enjoyed it and I've learned a lot from it. And I've taken the vaccine and I've been doing a lot of campaign in Manchester, encouraging people to go and take it. A lot of conspiracy theories, but they are bogus. And I think we need to encourage our people. I'm doing that. So thank you very much for putting this together. Very, very educated. Congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Richardson. Thank you. I'll call on someone called, Pastor James. Pastor James, can we unmute Pastor James, please?
Yeah, I think it's in regards to taking medication as a Christian. When you read from Ezekiel 47 verse 12, and I read from King James, and by the river upon the bank.
Will you be able to let us see you, please? If you have got your video turned off, you'll be, yes, thank you.
Can you see me now?
Yes, we can.
And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaves shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his month, because their waters issued out of the sanctuary. And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. So the scripture, the prophet is saying that the leaves of the tree is used for medicine for the people. So if you're a Christian and you take medication, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have anything to do with your or to destroy your faith in God. So I will encourage everybody to take medication when the need arises. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor James. Thank you so much. May I make one introduction and a contribution where possible? I want to bring to your notice that the Director of Diaspora Affairs, Office of the President of the Republic of Ghana, has joined us. His name is Mr. Akwesi Ewua Abebio. Mr. Abebio, if you are with us still, would you mind to make a few remarks before we move to the next question, please? If we have Mr. Abebio on it, can we unmute him? Mr. Ewua Abebio. Right, okay. You need to unmute yourself, please, Mr. Abebio. Yeah.
Hello, good evening to all of you. It's very it's a privilege for me to be with you this evening. I've been tuned in since you started, and I've listened to everything. I'm excited that such an educative program is going on to inform and to let everybody know I'm a vehicle.
Okay, I think Mr. Abebio's comment was to encourage us and obviously to urge us to keep going for the good of our community. I'm sure Mr. Abebio will join us again. He seemed to be in a place where network is a problem. So we'll move on. It's 9 o'clock, 2 minutes past 9. We aim to finish at 9. I'm going to, please, with your permission, keep this for the next 15 minutes, if you don't mind, so we can answer the 3 questions from 3 people, and then we will round up. I'll call on Russell, please. Russell, I'm just dealing with chat room, those who have raised their hands. Russell, can unmute yourself, please? All right. We don't seem to make any progress with Russell. Can we have Ajua? We've got Ajua, someone called Ajua who has raised their hand.
Yeah. Can you hear?
We can hear you. We can hear you a bit with a struggle. So I'm not sure if it's a network.
Okay. Thank you.